Hey, what's up? Today, I'm gonna show you that with about 45 bucks and an hour of work, you can make something just as civilized and as special as something from a downtown steakhouse. Because behind that veneer of leather and mahogany and waiters in white coats, all you need for a good steak is just good beef and a hot pan. To get started, of course, we need to talk about the steaks. Today, I've got what I would consider the king beef of the steakhouse 16-ounce ribeyes. These are about $14 each, and they are choice grade beef, meaning that the internal fat here is more than select, but less fat than prime. Now, I'm gonna generously salt both sides of these ribeyes with coarse, kosher salt. This is not only gonna season the outside of the meat, but it's also gonna draw out some much needed water from the flesh. Once that salt is laid on thick, we're gonna put these somewhere out of the way to come up to room temperature for about 30 to 45 minutes while we cook everything else. Up next is steak sauce, which I deem essential for a proper civilian steak night at home. For this video, I was convinced I needed to make my own steak sauce from scratch to show you guys what a pro I am. So I soaked some prunes, added in onions, garlic, anchovies, brown sugar, molasses, Worcestershire, cider vinegar, mustard powder, cloves, allspice. I cooked it down and I pureed it up, all in an attempt to recreate the classic A1 steak sauce from scratch. And guess what? Despite 3 attempts at tweaking the recipe, my from scratch option tasted very good, but it just wasn't as balanced and sweet and savory and tart as the A1 that we needed, and I wasn't convinced that it was better. So I'm gonna show you exactly what I make on a regular basis for steak sauce at home. It's speed scratch, it's easy, it's super delicious, and it's totally stupid. I really love it. So to make this, grab a small saucepan and into that measure 150 grams of the one and only A1 steak sauce, and on top of that 150 grams of Worcestershire. Throw that on the stove, bring it to a simmer, and once it's boiling, the heat's gonna get turned on to low, and we're gonna reduce this by about half. That's gonna take about a half hour. That's perfect. We have plenty of time to finish up the rest of our prep, and we will check back on this then. Next up, every white tablecloth steakhouse in the world needs some fancy roasted garlic potato puree. For that, I've got 5 pounds of waxy Yukon Gold potatoes, which I am of course gonna peel and then throw into a 4-quart pot, cover that with water, and throw them on the stove. I'm gonna bring these potatoes to a simmer and let them cook till fully tender for about 25 to 30 mins. In the meantime, I'm gonna grab 2 large bunches of Swiss chard because that's right, we're gonna cream this ship. Cream spinach is the age-old classic move here, but I think chard tastes a little bit more exciting. It's different, it's new, plus it has some stems that also taste very good and add some nice texture when prepared with care. We need to separate the leaves from the stems, so I'm gonna zip those off with my chef's knife and just set them aside for now. Once you've got everything ripped apart, we're gonna chop the woody bottom stuff from the chard stems, and then we're gonna split those stems lengthwise into 2 or 3 strips. From there, I'm just gonna run my knife across those stems until they're chopped into roughly a medium dice. I've got about a pint or 2 cups roughly of chopped chard stems here, and that's more than enough. If you have any more than that, you're gonna throw them in a future meal or recycle them, whatever you wanna do. Now, to chop these leaves, I'm gonna wrangle and smush them into a tight pile as best I can. Then I'm gonna use my chef knife and come across chopping them into roughly 1/2-inch strips. There we go. Now, the pile is gonna get turned 90 degrees, and we're gonna repeat this 1/2-inch chop across the pile until you've got about 1 pound of chopped greens to match your pint of stems. If you're a little shy on leaves, make up for it with some more Swiss chard or kale or even spinach. 1 pound of greens total here. Now back to the stove. Move those simmering potatoes to another burner, and now we're gonna preheat our 6.5 quart Dutch over high heat and add in 75 grams of butter, or about 3 tablespoons. Once that's most of the way melty, we're gonna throw in all of our chard stems, followed by 65 grams of shallots. This is about 2 small ones that I've just given them a quick little minceroo. And now a strong pinch of salt goes in. I'm gonna stir that all up to combine, and I'm gonna sweat this for about 3 to 4 minutes to release some water. And at that point, I'm gonna add in 10 grams of minced garlic, or about 2 large cloves. I'm gonna saute that garlic just a bit to soften it up. And as a reminder, we're on the high end of medium heat here. Once all these veggies are looking translucent and a little bit softer, in goes all the chopped chard. Now I'm gonna stir that in to wilt it up just a bit, and after about a minute or 2 of cooking, in goes 15 grams of all-purpose flour. This flour is gonna turn the butter into a roux, and when we add some dairy in a second, it's gonna make a nice saucy bechamel type thing for these greens. Speaking of dairy, in goes 225 grams of whole milk, followed by 225 grams of heavy cream. Now I'm gonna cook and stew this all down for about 25 minutes, stirring every now and again, just until things are thickened and they're meltingly tender and super savory. This stuff definitely doesn't look delicious yet, I agree with you, but it probably won't ever look that good. But trust me, this dinosaur of a dish is super tasty, and there is a reason that it's been a staple on steakhouse menus for like 1,000 years. Time to check on the potatoes. It's been about 25 to 30 minutes, and when we poke them with a
cake tester, we feel no resistance. They cannot stand up to my little poker. Now I'm gonna strain off the hot water here and get set up to smash these into a puree. I'm using a wooden spoon to break down these potatoes, mainly because it's easy. I used to use a food ricer here, but it was too hot on my fingies, and we are gonna be passing this through fine mesh in just a second, and that extra step of ricing is probably redundant in my opinion. Once these potatoes are properly smashed, in goes 200 grams of melted butter and 150 grams of heavy cream. And if you're thinking, hey Bri, isn't that quite the proper load of butter and cream? Yep. Once we've got a buttery, creamy, lumpy mess here, we're gonna go to the next level by passing these through a strainer. For that, I've got a large container. I've also got a chinois and a ladle. I'm gonna link to all these things down below if you need one. Once the potato mush is transferred over to that strainer, I'm gonna work up a sweat by pushing this through. All that butter and cream in the potatoes makes this mixture a little bit on the thin side, and that is a huge plus when we're trying to push it through a mesh strainer. Once we've done the hard work here of pushing these potatoes through the strainer, oh my word. Comically smooth, cartoonish looking potato puree. To finish these, we're gonna throw some roasted garlic in there. For that, I've got a head of garlic that I've just wrapped in 3 layers of foil and baked in a 400-degree oven for about 45 minutes and let it cool completely. Doing it in the oven like this, the garlic steams in the foil, but then also roasts and slowly caramelizes into a very round, very mellow, sweet garlic paste. To get it out, you just kind of squeeze it like this. It does look disgusting, but I need about 1 tablespoon, and I'm gonna flip that over into the potato mix along with 2 or 3 large pinches of salt, stir everything up together, and give it a taste. I'm gonna set these potatoes aside and take one last look at my cream chart. After about 25 minutes of cooking and stirring every few minutes, we've got something that holds itself up nicely when we pass our spatula through it. I'm gonna add in about 2 grams each of salt and pepper, slide that off to the side, and check back on your steak sauce in the corner. It's been slowly reducing over low heat for about 25 minutes while we've been adding cream and butter to other stuff, and it looks great. Set that aside, keep it warm. Now, it is time for beef. These ribeyes have been curing and warming up to room temp on top of my fridge for about 45 minutes. To fully dry them off and to get them ready for the pan, I'm gonna blot them very thoroughly with paper towels on both sides. The combo of a room temperature steak and a salt cured dried surface is going to give us a ridiculously well-browned steak. Speaking of well-browned foods, look at the color of these sweet potatoes and roasted broccolis from the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. Most weeknights between work and sleep, I'm usually shooting, editing, or testing recipes for these videos, and that makes it quite hard to effectively plan and prep meals. So HelloFresh has allowed me and Lauren to actually enjoy cooking dinner during filming. HelloFresh nights are the nights where Lauren is the cook in the kitchen, and she can usually get dinner on the table in about 30 minutes, or even 20 minutes if she's going for the quick and easy options that they offer. And depending on my schedule that week, HelloFresh is also super flexible. I can add or remove meals from the box, and most importantly, change delivery days. Sometimes I happen to have 5 or 6 leftover ribeye steaks in the fridge, and I won't be needing my box until Friday. So to give it a try, go to HelloFresh.com and use the code WeedsandSardines12 to get 12 free meals, including free shipping. HelloFresh saves you from so much food waste. The pre-portioned ingredients mean there is way less food prep and way less wasted food. Unlike this tub of ricotta that I bought to use for 2 tablespoons, and now it's been sitting here for 10 days. To give HelloFresh a try, go to HelloFresh.com and use the code WeedsandSardines12 to get 12 free meals, including free shipping. Thanks very much, HelloFresh. Now, I'm going to preheat a 12-inch cast iron pan over high heat, and make sure to turn on your fan because it's going to get a little bit smoky in here. Once that cast iron pan is ripping hot, in goes a generous amount of canola oil, like 3 to 4 tablespoons, and once that's hot, in goes my beef. Once this meat's in the pan, we're really going to press it in there to make sure that all of that surface area is touching the hot pan. Any meat gaps under there are going to steam and not sear, and that is a tragic loss of flavor. In goes steak 2, same deal, we're really going to press it into this pan. Since these steaks are thick but not too thick, and because we brought them to room temperature, they're really going to cook fast. Roughly 3 to 4 minutes per side should get us where we want to be, which for me is just about medium rare, maybe a little bit above. A fatty steak like this can be tough, and the fat won't be fully rendered if you go any lower than that, in my opinion, but let me know what you guys do. What's your ideal ribeye temperature? Throw it down in the comments. After 3 minutes of cooking, I like to take a little sneaky peeky to see if things are getting as brown as I like, and yeah, that looks sick. So I'm gonna flip these steaks over, and as you can see, pretty much every single inch of the surface here is crusty and brown. It's amazing. Now, I'm gonna keep searing on the other side for about 1 to 2 minutes for that color to develop, and then we're gonna finish these steaks restaurant style. To do that, we're gonna throw in about 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 garlic cloves, and a few sprigs of thyme. The butter gets foamy and garlicky and herbal and just smothers the beef with its rich milkiness. And after about a minute or two of just basting and basting, we're gonna pull these steaks off the heat and then use an instant read thermometer to gauge the doneness. 125 degrees Fahrenheit or roughly 51 degrees Celsius is what we're looking for, and that looks perfect. As you can see, I've topped this resting steak with an additional pad of butter just to be a jerk about it. And yeah, while that rests, we're gonna finish the steak sauce. And you guessed it, in goes more butter. I'm gonna pop in about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter cut into wedges, and I'm gonna stir that into emulsify. Make sure to keep stirring until it's silky and opaque and looks like this. That's a proper steak sauce for Daddy's steak. And it's everything that your steak needs. And you probably have what you need in your refrigerator to make it right now. These steaks have been resting for about 15 minutes, and now we're gonna slice them perpendicular to the way the muscle is aligned or against the grain. Look at this cook. For me, like I said, just past medium rare is the ideal spot for a cut of beef this fatty. But cook it to what you like. There's no shame in medium or even medium well. If you're enjoying your steak, no one can tell you that it's uncool. To finish this, I'm gonna hit it with some flaky Maldon salt for pops of salinity, and finally, a little bit of steak sauce. We're gonna plate up our finished mashed potatoes. They're so silky and roasty and subtly sweet from that creamy roasted garlic. The cream chard is hearty and classic and full of robust, savory vegetable flavor. It turns out that you're the king of this steakhouse tonight. No jacket required. Let's eat this thing.
Before I get out of here, a huge thank you to everybody who supports this channel on Ko-fi. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And if you want to see more videos of me cooking and talking about food, there's a couple over there to give it a try. As always, guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you next time.